From Tag TV in Canada, the United States, and Europe, welcome to Panorama. I'm your hostess, Gada Hamadani. Today, we will shed light on the main challenges the Yazidis, victims of terror attacks by ISIS, have faced since their arrival in Canada and the United States. Are they safe, or are they victimized again? I'd like to welcome my guests in the studio, Chatawani, the president of the Kurdish House in GTA. And on the phone from Washington, Lucy Osoyan, the founder and president of Yazidi Relief Fund. Welcome. Could you please brief us about the latest Yazidis genocide, please?
First of all, thank you very much for having me in your program. This is 74 genocide the Yazidi is subjected to the Yazidi people. This is number 74. The one that took place in 2014, August 3rd. ISIS terrorist personnel attacked the city of Sinjar and surrounding villages and killed more than 6,000 Yazidis, kidnapped and sex-slaved near 3,000 women in different ages, and they are still captured by ISIS. They mobilize them, they move them around wherever they go.
Okay, now I'm going to have the question to Lucy. Lucy, in about June 6, 2015, a Canadian media outlet presented that between 300 to 400 Yazidis and Christian sex slave girls were rescued from ISIS. Where are they? Have they brought to Canada? Have you met any of them? What were their families' reaction? So could you please tell us about those 300 to 400 Yazidi girls, please?
Well, let me start with the fact that such apocalyptic event was unexpected. There were rumors of some sort of war, but not many people paid much of attention to it. No one really could imagine or predict the tragedy of such a massive scale. Therefore, in the aftermath of ISIS attack on Shingal and Sinjar area in August 2014, people were deeply shocked and were trusting everyone. For that reason, some individuals have taken advantage of ongoing chaos and have formed all kinds of fundraising events. They as well claim that they've been rescuing Yazidi girls and have been making up numbers of rescued women. You see, our community is pretty connected with one another. I'd say we are one of the smallest minorities in the Middle East, and if anyone pays visit to a camp or to a family, we would know. The General Directorate of Yazidi Affairs in Kurdish Regional Government had to issue a statement both to prevent others to desire the advantage and to warn the community. But if you are asking me about the girls that unimaginably have been rescued in order to raise funds, we aren't aware of any such cases.
So what was the reaction of the families when they heard the news? It's like it was all over the media. It was, a couple of channels, they were, it's like presenting the news. So what was the reaction of the families of those victims or in general?
Well, first of all, there was no family that could verify or confirm that the member of the family have been rescued by a particular individual who've been making statements that they rescued 300-400 girls. If you rescue one girl, you can't hide it, let alone 400-300. We speak about a large number. And so the Yazidi diaspora or the community raised, they were alarmed and they begin to make a note about it, and they raised a lot of public awareness. People were talking about it. There was an interview on TV with the individuals claiming they have rescued Yazidi girls, but their statements were very weak, and it did increase the public awareness of non-compliance with non-Yazidi or Kurdish diaspora individuals.
Okay, then what is the actual number of Yazidi girls who were rescued or ran away from ISIS since 2014 up until that news? Do you have any idea?
Yes, according to data from Kurdish Regional Government, Office of Yazidi Affairs, of the 6,255 Yazidis who were abducted, 3,048 have been liberated, 1,092 women and 334 men, 1,622 children, of which 819 girls and 803 boys. In total of 3,369 people are still remaining captive.
Okay. And how many Yazidis, women and girls or families have arrived to Canada and the United States? I don't know if you have the numbers for both or a part of it with Cheto, and you're going to tell us about the United States.
Well, I wish I could give you exact numbers for U.S. Unfortunately, Yazidis have been identified either as Iraqi refugees or Syrian refugees. So in U.S., we don't have a track of the numbers. The Homeland Security wouldn't disclose the particular information. But what comes to the Canadian government, they in November 2017, it's been reported that out of 1,200 pledged to bring to Canada by Canadian government, 747 have actually arrived.
Okay, the question to Cheto. Okay, would you give us some numbers or?
Numbers of the Yazidis arrived to Canada.
Yes, yeah.
As far as, because we deal with them directly as a Greater Toronto Kurdish House and all kind of logistic helps, language, registering their kids in the schools and stuff. As far as our record, it's the latest number is 42 families here in GTA, and there is some others in London, Ontario. But I would like to mention this since you raised this question. The government unfortunately left them alone. Yes, it's great to bring them to this safe haven and wonderful country like Canada, peaceful, and they feel safe, but they left alone.
So they are not sponsored by the government? Is that what you're trying?
The largest number being brought by the government, sponsored by the government officially, but some
Government
of them are...
or UN?
No, Canadian government.
Canadian, okay.
Yeah, but some others being privately sponsored by some other communities, such as Jewish communities sponsor some of them. But the one that been brought by the Canadian government left alone, frankly left with no help, no assistance, just like any other refugees. And as my colleague and my friend Lucy mentioned, we have to go to the custody centers to find out about these Yazidis. Otherwise, the government never inform us if upon their arrival. They don't tell us the Yazidis are here. And they know very well Yazidis have no help. No one can help them other than the Kurdish communities, because we have same language, same culture. And we're the only one can help them closely. But that's not the case, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, I would add, if I could,
Yes, yeah, sure.
that the Canadian government have planned a budget of $28 million to resettle 1,200 Yazidi victim refugees. And here we see the issue. There are, again, individuals who have taken advantage of Yazidi women and have misused their trust. There is a significant lack of follow-up with the Canadian government. It is easy to make promises and make big statements, but it is a different scenario when it comes to the reality. And if I could add one more thing, is that the people have been forced to earn for their living in the most cases without any vocational training, without knowledge of English language, or any sort of work skills. We are talking about the cases of victims. In some cases, these victims have never been outside of their own villages, let alone surviving on their own in a foreign country without any support. It is extremely difficult to survive in a new atmosphere for ordinary people, but we are discussing totally different condition. Here in US, I have visited a family and my heart went out for them. They were in tears and wishing to go back. It's just the $10,000 that they had in loan to the organization that sponsored their tickets to US was the only obstacle for them to go back home.
Wow. Okay, it's like while you're working, it's like you both work with the Yazidis and the refugees. So what are the new main challenges beside, it's like adapting to the environment, it's like to the culture, the language. So what other challenges?
If I may, one of the biggest problems that the Yazidis facing here and in general around the world, there are some organizations and then some religious organizations, some NGOs or what so-called NGOs taking advantage of Yazidi tragedy and marketing it for the sake of some funds and some money. Unfortunately, I'm aware of an organization that went all the way to Kurdistan and took some Canadian MPs with them, and put a camera in the refugee camps, in the Yazidi refugee camps, and brought it back here, broadcasted it, showed it to some churches and synagogues and some communities, MPs, Canadian government, claiming that they saved the Yazidi people that were captured by ISIS. It's all false claiming, and it's all misleading. This is one of the biggest insult and biggest challenge the Yazidi are facing now. Everybody, like lots of organizations, the one that we are aware of in Canada, are taking advantage of this tragedy, unfortunately, and making money out of it. This must stop. Canadian government must step in and uncover all these false accusations and misleading about the Yazidi tragedy.
How about the United States, Lucy? Do you have the same thing as we have here in Canada? Or the situation is better?
I would love to add. You see, it is not a secret that Yazidis are the community of the street culture, victims often ashamed of what have happened to them. It is a matter of honor for not only to one person, but to entire family and the tribe as a whole. Unfortunately, I would repeat again, so-called humanitarian organization of the Middle Eastern background, aware of it and do take advantage of it. For example, we've recently, and unfortunately late for us, have learned that there was a sexual misconduct. We speak of already brutally victimized women that have came from conservative community where people prefer to dive and disclose the details of the crime that happened to them. So there is a question to the Canadian government, was it the right choice to bring the victims and let them go through the same thing again? From the beginning, we've been asking for governmental aid to go to the ground where the people could better cope with their condition. Or since it is a case right now, then follow up or ask the people of the same diaspora or the same exact language, which is Kurdish, to support and help and handle these individuals with care. You know, we know for sure that we can count on our people. Now, in US, we have a different structure of this work. There are organizations that have been doing this work for many years. They have been practicing in this kind of cases for over 20, 30 years, and we have special accountability on those organizations. It's been very closely supervised by governmental bodies, as of Department of Justice, as well as IRS, so people have better knowledge and awareness in case of something goes wrong, they can raise their voices. I am not sure, given the fact that is a total chaos with the Yazidi cases that is going on in Canada, I can say that there is no clear system that would work within Canadian government that could we as a diaspora count on. Unfortunately, this is the case, and unfortunately, it's very upsetting for us to learn.
Okay, well, this is unfortunate. Cheto, actually, we heard something here in Canada. It's like we heard some complaint about some human rights organization abusing and misusing their power, which comes in line with what Lucy just mentioned. So actually, when they deal with the Yazidis girls, that's where they misuse their power. And do you identify such cases, and what have you done, and why the families of those girls, it's like didn't stand up for their girls, they didn't come forward, it's like complain to the police, to the officials, please.
As I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest challenges the Yazidis are facing here in Canada, difficulty of adopting the lifestyle in this country, and because they are always afraid of the police, government, etc., all this stuff. And as you mentioned earlier, this organization, human rights, or what so-called human rights organization representatives, they went into this Yazidi families and took advantage of some of them. And once we asked them, okay, you must call the authorities to stop this. And but because, as I said, they scare, or they come from a trauma that it's difficult for them to get into such stories and problems. But we keep encouraging them. They must call the authorities in order to stop or to bring these people to justice in order to be an example of the rest or whoever that in the future that dealing with the Yazidis must deal with them with respect and respecting their dignities.
Were some of those Yazidis girls underage?
I'm sorry?
Were some of them underage?
Yes, all of them. The one that's been subjected to this problem are underage,
So
and
then,
that makes the problem bigger.
when it's underage, I believe the organizations or anybody's it's like from the surrounding can it's like take the initiative and go and report it. But what would the families stand on that if somebody is it's like go to the officials, said this girl, she's underage and there was some sexual misconduct or it's like some abuse, what
Yes.
would the family?
Of course, the organizations can do that, can take such an initiative and go to the authorities and inform them. But again, we are hoping and we are trying to we are encouraging the family itself, themselves, to come forward and tell us to do it, rather than us to go and inform the authorities. But in the end of the day, we have to go.
Would the family stand up with you if you do it? If you go and report those,
we're working on
behaviors?
it for now.
So
We'll
would the
see.
family stand up with you and support your initiative?
I hope they would. I hope they would stand up with us in order, because they're the one that facing these problems, and they are the ones should help us to stop and solve this problem.
Okay, because it's like we heard some cases actually. It's like where those human rights organizations representative, it's like they were approaching those women, the Yazidis girls, it's like even they are underage, but there were some, it's like some hopes. They gave them some hopes, and it's like due to the culture there, they wouldn't mind. Let's say they would think, okay, they're gonna get married, so that's why they don't go forward. Is that true?
Well, Yazidis.
Yes,
Go ahead,
Lucy.
Lucy. Sorry.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we speak about extremely conservative community
Yes.
that have ended up in totally new environment. These people have been on the land for centuries, and they've been born in one culture. They died in one culture where they died for that same culture. The question is how deeply it is involved from Canadian Justice Department that have never supervised such so-called organizations that take advantage of these people and misuse their trust. There has been assimilation going on in Canada itself. For instance, Yazidis have been assimilated under threat under government of Saddam Hussein to announce themselves as Arabs. And Chato is right there. He could correct me if I'm wrong. There has been cases where Yazidis would say, yes, we are Arabs, just, we don't want to mess with anyone. We just want to peacefully end our day or our week, So there is kind of intimidation going on around. So that may be one of the reasons why people choose to stay silent. Another thing that we have to count is that the leadership of that particular or this particular organization, they know for sure that there will be no challenges from governmental side, or these individuals will never be held accountable for their misconduct. So therefore, they have a green light to do whatever they please to do, and they do it, and nobody proceed with it. So we speak about individuals like Cheto or me. We are civilians. We are people who should be also supervised, and we are supervised. In U.S., we have a pretty serious structure of the system that is very transparent, and people can follow it and people can find the track of it. I do not know how is it working in Canada. Therefore, we are very upset with the system that has not been placed in order in Canada. And I think this is a Canadian government issue that has to follow up and held individuals accountable for their for the crimes that they have committed.
Absolutely. Cheto, after having members of ISIS on Canadian soil, what were the Yazidis' reactions?
This is another challenge that the Yazidis I was going to talk about it, facing in Canada. After an incident happened, all of a sudden, one of the Yazidi refugees, a lady actually, was one of the captured woman by ISIS. She lives in London, Ontario. By incidentally, she saw one of the ISIS members, and he was Amir. Amir, it means one of the commander. That was, he captured her and he kept her for a while with her, and he sold her as it's in the national post news mentioned. She saw him here in London, Ontario, and once he faced her, he ran away from her. And but the thing is, the point is, he's free. He's walking free on this soil, and Canadian government haven't taken any actions yet. And there's some other members of ISIS that attacked Yazidis and other civilians in Iraq and Syria. They're walking freely in this country. This is what concerns the Yazidis and all of Canadian people in general.
So what's your comment on that, Lucy? Do you have any comment?
Well, you see, from day one, we've been advocating the governments, both in U.S. and in Canada, instead of bringing refugees and resettling them, which has cost a lot of tremendous amount of taxpayers' money, it is better to fund the on-the-ground projects. There is no forensic detail scanning of individuals that are coming both to U.S. or Canadian government. People do not have any background of those individuals that are entering into the government. So it is most likely that there will be ISIS members, and there is most likely there will be some kind of accidents in the future or attacks. And it is, let me mention this, it is not so safe for those victims who've been brought to the safe haven to stay in that place and feel safe, since they already have recognized their abusers already on the ground in that, I would say, quote unquote, safe haven. So I think, you know, there has been a lot of manipulation on a Yazidi case, but it's still not too late to kind of sit down and rethink about what happened and what's happening. It is important for Canadian government to take measurements and to bring those perpetrators to the justice and hold them accountable for what they've done to these individuals. And those individuals who are already on the ground, who are in a safe haven, they have to be supervised by Canadian government much more closely, and they have to be cared with these people. They faced so much of brutality. We speak about Jewish Holocaust, which has been going through the brutality, and we speak about Yazidis. It is the same case scenario in different era. But then just before I had this interview, I was again going through the videos and images, and one of the image that it will remain in my mind, how the ISIS burned Yazidi women, 20 of them, in a cage, just for the fact that they refused to have a sex. Imagine the girl that faced that, to see the perpetrator freely walking in the country where she thought she was safe.
Okay. Lucy, it's like we're gonna move to another point actually. It's like in August 25th, 2016, there was an urgent call for investigation issued by the General Directorate of Yazidi Affairs in Erbil, the region of Kurdistan, and was signed by 29 Yazidis, Iraqi Christians, and other Iraqi humanitarian organizations. Could you please tell us what was it about?
Well, yes. I think we went a little bit over it at the beginning, but
yes,
the beginning of 2014 was so chaotic. Everyone had this quote-unquote good intention to help Yazidis, and everyone took initiative of it. So there were a few individuals who made big claims that they rescued about 300-400 Yazidis, that we never heard of those cases. We never met those rescued girls. I don't know what happened to them or who actually rescued them, but they made significant amount of fundraising on that case.
So what was the outcome of that, it's like investigation? Have you, it's like Canada, Washington, because some of the organizations were from United States, some of them were Canadian, and many of them from Iraq, and mostly Yazidis. So what was the outcome? What was the reaction of the Canadian government, the officials? So did you get anywhere when, you get that, call? Yes, Lucy, tell us.
Yes. So the beginning of 2014 crisis that happened right after August 3rd, there were large of numbers of all kinds of different organizations rushing into helping Yazidis. Some organizations were genuine, some of them were ill-intentioned. So when kind of dust fades away and we realize what's happening, there were organizations that would claim that they rescued 400 Yazidi girls. We as community had no idea how that happened because, like I mentioned before, we are such a small community that we are very well aware of one another. If you rescue one girl, everyone would know about it, and we speak about hundreds of girls, right? So when the community learned about this kind of individuals taking advantage of our grief or of our tragedy, they become extremely upset and saddened by what's happening. For that reason, the General Directorate of Kurdish Regional Government Yazidi Affairs have launched this investigation. So the investigation itself was, let's say the organization which were in Kurdish regional government, let's say Yazidi organizations or Kurdish organizations. That's why I'm saying that when it is from within diaspora, it's easy to hold people accountable or find the tracks of it. But then we speak about individuals who create their own organization overnight, and they were in Canada or in US. So what the Yazidi community and Kurdish community did public awareness, a massive public awareness. We did challenge those individuals. They came up on TV, on national TV stations, on American national TV. It was on Fox News. I remember that event. I don't know on which TV national station in Canada it was. The individual who made those claims, he was very aggressive and upset, and their statements were very weak, and people learned something. They've learned that somebody is taking advantage. We have to be extremely careful. And ever since, we've been encouraging, for instance, even people would approach me and they would say, how can I make the donation? I would say, just send the money to Kurdish regional government, or do this. There is a Red Cross, there is United Nations, there are organizations which have a long-term experience that you can rely on. You can find their tracks of the work that we know for sure they are on the ground. But do not trust the individuals who opened the NGOs overnight. So that awareness actually stopped a lot of people from being misled. But there are still individuals who use in people's well intentions towards their own pockets, and that is very, very unfortunate. And we've been trying really hard to make sure that people understand what's going on. You can only do so much when the world is so huge and when the organizations are spread all over the world. And the case of Yazidis is such a hot topic, and everyone is trying to take advantage of it. But we did challenge those individuals who were trying to claim that they've done something and they never did at the reality.
Okay, that's good. Actually, it's like you were able to stop some of them, and hopefully you're gonna stop the rest. And it's like last word to you, Cheto.
Okay, I just want to say that my calls to Canadian government and Canadian MPs to pay attention, better attention to the Yazidi refugees and contact the right organizations to help them, which is Kurdish Community and Kurdish House. We are the only one that can help the Yazidis because we're same nation, we speak same language, and we share same culture. In order to stop these individuals and fake organizations take advantage of the Yazidis, they must go through us. We tell them what's the best for the Yazidis, and the Yazidis can tell them what's best for them.
Lucy, would you like to add anything before we finish?
Oh yes, my call would be as well to Canadian government, to the highest level, that you guys were such a great example for us, especially during this turmoil in the immigration system that we are facing in the United States. We welcome Yazidis, but when you take responsibilities of certain cases, you gotta have transparent system that will work and please these people. You gotta have a system that you can rely on. And so my call would be to the Canadian government to hold perpetrators accountable, to hold members of ISIS accountable, to bring them to justice, to make sure if you have brought a Yazidi victim to safe haven, then provide that safe haven and follow it up. Please, let the people who are from same nation, same diaspora, who felt same pain and who speak same language to take care of each other, instead of letting Yazidis to be assimilated, threatened, and sexually abused. This is unheard of. This is absolutely upsetting when you hear about these people have fled their homeland, the place where they ready to die, and they have died. They came for the safety, and they have been again misused. So this is very unfortunate that we are speaking of today.
Okay, thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Cheto, and hope to see you some other time. Thank you.